Ladies and gentlemen of the Action Army, what is going on? And welcome to another episode of Answers for Athletes. My goal for today's video is to bring you into my laptop, into the app that I use to write programming, which is Train Heroic. It's free if anybody out there is wondering. And I want to show you how I plan to taper my own training so that I'm feeling very fresh and hopefully dunking by the end of March. Now, just so that everybody's on the same page, a volume phase and a taper, the volume phase is where you do higher volume, obviously, but you are trying to stress the body as much as possible to force adaptation. But at the expense of really stressing the body, you stress your central nervous system. And sometimes while stressing your central nervous system and your tendons, your muscles, etc., sometimes while stressing your nervous system so much in the volume phase, you begin to see a decrease in performance and in vertical jump. Some people don't like that. You don't always have to go through a volume phase, but I like to go through a volume phase. The more experienced of an athlete you are, the more volume that you are going to need to stress the body. But you go through a volume phase to stress the body as much as possible, and then you taper off, or you back off, or you deload. But today we're talking about a taper. You taper your training so you do less volume and less volume and less volume week by week, so that by the end of that taper, you are like, your body can catch up. It can adapt from all the training that you've been doing, and therefore the adaptations will occur and supercompensation will occur, and you will be jumping higher than you were before. That is the goal. So now that we're on the same page, this is a very tactical video. It's very specific. We're getting down to the numbers, down to the nitty gritty. I got the percentages written out for you. I got the total sets, the total reps, the total percentages in each week of my taper. So we have a lot to talk about, but I will try to make it as easily digestible as possible for all of you. So let's take a look here. So this was my volume phase, right? I did more than 2 weeks of a volume phase. I might have stuck in a volume phase a little bit too long, but these are the last 2 weeks of my volume phase right here. So we'll just go through this one here. So I had 4 lower body workouts per week for these last 2 weeks of my volume phase. Now, for a lot of people, that's going to be too much, but for me, for everything that I wanted to do, I split it up into 4 different workouts because I wanted to split up my plyos and my anterior chain quad dominant, knee dominant work on Mondays and Thursdays, and I wanted my post chain on Tuesdays and Fridays so that I could attempt to fix my right quad tendon pain while still increasing my vertical jump and stressing my body as much as possible. So that is why I did the 4 days. So in week 1 of my taper, I am going to switch it automatically to 3 days a week. I will admit to all of you that I did not enjoy 4 days a week. I did not like, I've never done 4 days a week of high intensity days. I've done I've had, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday high intensity, and then a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday low intensity, but never did I do like 60 to 90 to sometimes even 2 hour long workouts with all the cameras set up and recording all the episodes for you guys. Never have I done 4 long high intensity workouts a week, and I did not enjoy it. So first thing is first, I'm going back to 3 times a week because that is what I like the most. So this is week 1 of my taper. So, and I do have a little caveat at the end, which I'm just going to explain now. The volume that I did in my volume phase, if we look up here, is way too much for the normal person. Way too much. I do not recommend that you do this much volume. The reason that I did this much volume is because I'm a little bit nuts. I'm slightly a moron. Actually, I'm a moron. But I just wanted to do all of this work, and there was nothing that I was willing to sacrifice. In a volume phase, the thing that I was willing to sacrifice was my vertical jump. I really don't care if I jump high. I'm already trying to fix my knee pain, so I just wanted to stress my body as much as possible. So I had 4, listen to this, I had 4 lower body sessions per week and 5 upper body sessions per week with my buddy Drew at the gym. And that is way too much for the normal person. It's probably way too much for me, but I did it anyways. So central nervous system absolutely fried. During my workouts, it was to the point where I wasn't feeling recovered from my next set. I would just do my next set whether I felt recovered or not. It was like I was just super crushed that last week of the volume phase. I will admit, the last week or two, my body was like, bro, my central nervous system was like, bro, what are you doing? Anyways, let's get into it. I keep yapping. So week 1 of the taper, here's what we did. So that was my whole caveat. Don't start with as much volume as I started with. You need to start with way lower volume, but I will explain how you can do that once I get to the end of this video. So week 1 of the taper, you already noticed that by doing 3 days a week instead of 4, we are already automatically going to cut a lot of volume out. But in this volume phase, here's what I had. I had 80 total working sets per week. So 4 days a week, but it was 80 total working sets. Now that's a lot of sets for your lower body, but keep in mind, and there's already going to be somebody, like, you probably already commented it, but I'm going to call you out. Somebody's going to say, 80 total working sets? What an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. Trust me, bro. I do this for a living. I understand what I'm doing. 80 total working sets. That's including isometrics, plyometrics, anterior chain, knee dominant work, post chain work. That is 80 total working sets, like encompassing every single thing that I was trying to improve. Not upper body, all lower body, 80 total working sets, but that's isos, plyos, anterior chain, posterior chain. And that's an average. I tried to just estimate for my my jump sessions and my sprint sessions, because I do those to drop off. So I estimated 10 max jumps and I estimated 5 max sprints. So 80 working sets, 1,030 reps. 1,030 working reps for my volume phases. Probably too much. Yeah, absolutely. Probably too much, but we did what we did. So in week 1 of my taper, we are down to 68 working sets. We're down to 565 working reps. So that is 85% of the volume of my volume phase. I hope everybody's staying with me. I'll try to explain this and make this as user-friendly as possible. So in my volume phase with those 4 workouts last week, we're going to use that as 100%. That was 100% of the volume that I was doing. So in a taper, as I've been saying in my past videos, you want to do 100% volume, but then in your taper, I was explaining, like, you might do 80% week 1 of your taper. Then you might do 60% week 2 of your taper. Then you might do 40% of volume week 3 of your taper. That is what we are getting into. I have 85% of the total working sets as my volume phase. But for the reps, we're at 55% volume. So I do want to say this. It is more accurate when you are totaling up your volume, if you do want to total up the sets and the reps. Some people don't want to do that, but that's what I do as a coach for my athletes. Like, they pay me to be meticulous and get the percentages and taper correctly or back off correctly. So I did 500, or in my week 1 taper, we have 565 reps. That is 55% of the reps as my volume phase. So that's almost half. So I'm already in week 1 cutting my training volume in half. Does that make sense to everybody? So it's more accurate to go off total reps than it is total sets, because if you just, like, you might do 2 sets of 10 reps versus 3 sets of 5 reps. That's just a good example. So 2 sets of 10, you could think, oh, less volume, 2 sets, but they're 10 reps. That's 20 reps total, whereas 3 sets of 5 reps is actually less volume because it's 15 reps total. But you might think 3 sets versus 2 sets. Obviously, 2's less. You guys get it. Go off of reps, not off of sets when you are doing your volume. Working reps. I really hope this is user-friendly for you guys. I'm just trying to explain this as best that I can, but this is the nitty-gritty. This is the specific. So if you're still watching, I appreciate it, and I will continue to try to make it user-friendly. The exercises that I cut out of the volume phase in week 1, I cut out a lot of exercises. I cut out all of my 2-minute long isometrics. I cut out all of my loaded isometrics where I like do a lunge hold holding dumbbell, Spanish squat holding a dumbbell. I cut out my lateral storage and release series. I cut out my approach box jump series. I cut out my deep tier squat jumps and my deep tier lunge jumps. I cut out my tibialis raise to hamstring stretch. I cut out my pistol squat series, but I did add in 2 days of a bilateral squat instead of pistol squats. And I cut out my Nordic curls. It's just Nordic curls during this taper, it's just super eccentric focused. They do leave me sore, so I'm just cutting that out. It doesn't belong in my taper. It could, but it doesn't belong in my personal taper. So those are all of the exercises that I cut out. And then for week 1, once again, 68 total working sets, which is 85% of the total sets from my volume phase, and then 565 total reps, which is 55% of the total reps from my volume phase. But keep in mind that these 55% of reps are going to be heavier. So if I had in my volume phase 4 sets of 20, but now I changed it to 4 sets of 10, obviously I can go heavier for 4 sets of 10 than I can 4 sets of 20. So that is going to increase my volume. So I do want to say this, it is 100% impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very, very hard to calculate the exact amount of volume. So just go by estimates. If you're about 80% on that week 1, okay. If you're about 60% volume on week 2, if you're about 40% volume on week 3, then okay. If you're still following along, you're a real one. Like, you really care about this shit, because I guarantee a lot of people clicked off because this video is not for the weak at heart. Week 2 taper. Let's move on. So I'm not going to get too much into the exercises. You can see them here on the screen. So this is what I had, in my volume phase. This is what I had in my week 1 of my taper. Like, you can see what is changing based on, I'm just going to leave this up here. Week 2 of my taper. In week 2 of my taper, here's what we removed. These exercises did not make the cut. Monster walks, lateral side steps, half moon walks. So all glute medius work, it got ixnayed. Seated hamstring curls got cut. Reverse hypers got cut. But I did leave lying hamstring curls and regular hyperextensions. So on Friday, last week, we had reverse hypers and we had seated hamstring curls. So that was twice a week that I was doing the hypers, essentially, and the ham curls. I just removed 1 session of each. So we still do have some lying hamstring curls and some hypers, but we do not have 2 times per week. Obviously, you can see the reps are decreasing. Like last week, we had a lot of 2x10, 3x10. The middle session, we had 4x8, 4x8, 4x15 for calf raises. So when you come to week 2 taper, now we got a lot of 2x8, 4x5, 2x8, 4x8, 4x5. So we are decreasing the reps. So this is one of my points that I wanted to make earlier. So let's see. On Monday, week 1 of the taper, we had 4x8 barbell RDLs. Week 2 of the taper, we have 4x5. Obviously, I could do 5 reps with more weight than I could do 8 reps. So the volume is increasing due to the weight increasing, but it's decreasing due to the reps decreasing. But the total amount of volume is decreasing week by week. So those are the exercises that we removed. Week 2, we have 50 total working sets, which is 62% of the total volume from the volume phase, and 291 reps, which is 28% of the volume. So you're probably thinking, maybe you might be thinking this, and I said, when you do a taper, your volume phase is 100% volume. You want to go week 1, 80%, then 60%, then 40%. But in week 2 of my taper, I'm at 28%. The reason for that is because I did too much volume in the first place. Like, I did way too much volume in the first place. So I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. But that is why I'm already week 2 of my taper. I'm at 28% of the total volume that I had in my volume phase. It's because I just did too much volume in the beginning. let's just move on. This video is already going to be long. Week 3 of my taper, and the last week of my taper, I was going to do one more week, and I'll show you what I would do if I were to do a 4th week, but this 3rd week is going to take me to the end of March, and starting in April, I just want to get into a different phase. I don't really want to be tapering for 4 weeks. So week 3 of my taper, the exercises that we removed were lying hamstring curls, hyperextensions, kettlebell swings, and plate-loaded hip thrusts. Those exercises did not make the cut. So week 3 of my taper, this is essentially this is what I think I need to dunk. Like these exercises, everything that I have here in week 3 is like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, what is the least amount of work that I can do while still stimulating my body to force adaptation? So like these barbell RDLs, like I'm still going to be trying to go heavier. Like I'm still going to be trying to progressive overload, but I'm trying to do so little of volume that I feel very fresh and I can dunk by the end of March. That is my goal. And I do think I could remove still a little bit of volume, and I'll show you that. I'll talk about what I would do if I were to do the first week of April and taper for a 4th week. I will talk about that 1 second. So in week 3 of my taper, we have 33 total working sets, which is 41% of the volume phase, but we only have 84 total working reps, which is 8% of the total working reps that I was doing in my volume phase. So, and I will explain this. So once again, I said week 1, 80%, then 60%, then 40%. Once again, it is because I was doing way too much in my volume phase. But I was doing that on purpose. Like I'm trying to stress my body. I'm a fat piece POS. I'm trying to swear a little bit less too. So let's get into, I just have a few. So that is it, right? That is my taper. That is what I'm doing for the taper. So you can see here, this is my volume phase right here. Then we have week 1 of my taper, moved to 3 days a week. Still a lot of volume, still a lot of exercises. Week 2 of my taper, now we have a lot less exercises. In week 3 of my taper, a lot less exercises. So just a caveat, I would never give anyone a workout schedule, a workout split that looks like this. Or even really this, like week 1 of my taper, like I would never even really program that much volume for anyone else either. But a few last things that I think are very important. Number 1, if I did want to taper even more, so here, let's just do it. If I did want to taper even more and make a week 4 taper, what I could do and what I would do is I actually might even remove these ISOs. Like I could remove these ISOs because the ISOs I feel do take away just slightly from my my jump sessions, but we'll leave them there. I would probably remove the RDLs and I would remove the calf raises. And I could remove the ISOs if I wanted, but I'll probably still hit them because my knee still hurts. Then this session, I would probably seated box jumps. I'd probably remove the drop jumps and the depth jumps for reactive strength. A little more intense than seated box jumps. I would keep the sprints for sure. But that is all that I would have that day, would be seated box jumps and sprints until drop off. And then my last session, I would probably remove the standing calf raises and the RDLs. So I would only do this for 1 week. Like you don't want to neglect your post chain altogether for too long. But I do feel like post chain work in some instances can fatigue the central nervous system and make you feel less bouncy. So if I did do a week 4 taper, I would literally just do dunks and then squats. And then I would do seated box jumps and sprints and then dunks and squats. That's literally all that I would do. Like that, this is the lowest amount of volume that I would get to. But now, another important point. You want your last week, like the final week of your taper, you want it to be like, I'm going to use an analogy here, like taking one bite of a cookie Think about, you got this big chocolate chip cookie. It's like this big. Make sure you're looking. If you're listening to this video, just stop your car. You got to look at this. This is how big the cookie is. This is a nice big chocolate chip cookie. Or if you like a different type of cookie, just imagine it's a different type of cookie. Imagine now just taking one big bite of that cookie. That's all you get. You want the rest of it. Like, imagine your mom as a kid. Nope, you can only have one bite of that cookie. You want the rest of it. You want more. That is what your last week of your taper should be like. You want to do more work, but you got to relax. Only do the minimum amount of work. So only do jumps and squats or jumps and sprints. Keep it very, very, very low volume to the point where you get your work in and you're like, man, I don't want to leave the gym yet. Like, I want to do more work. Nope, don't do more work. It's a taper. It's a back off. It's a deload. Leave the gym. Your central nervous system will thank you. Next important point. If I were you, I wouldn't use my first week of my taper where I did that 4-day split, tons of volume. I wouldn't use that and then cut volume down. What I would do is I would use this week right here, week 3 of my taper. So this third week with 33 total working sets and 84 total reps, I would use this as your last week of your taper. And then I would increase in volume from there. So imagine that this week is 50% of the volume that you're going to do, right? Or 40. Imagine this is 40%. And then add sets and reps until you get to 60% volume, and then 80% volume, and then 100% volume, and use that as your volume. Does that make sense? I know a lot of you are like, that made no sense at all. So basically, look at this, week 5. This week 5 right here. Imagine that this is 40% of your total volume. I'm about to say the same shit again and act like it made any difference. How can I explain this? This is your total volume right here. This is 40%, right? So imagine week 3 of my taper. This is your last week of your taper. Then increase the volume in increments of 20% from this week up until you get to 100%. So if we did that, if we went up 20% here to week 2 of your taper, this would essentially be 60% volume. Then this would essentially be 80% volume. And then this, your volume phase, would be 100% volume. But for me, this is not 100% volume. This is literally like 250% volume. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? I'm a bozo, so I don't know. Probably did not explain that well. So if you don't understand, it's not your fault. It's me, because I probably did not explain that well. But if you do understand, yay. Last thing. This was impossible to get 100% right. Like I said, I tried to calculate the volume as best as I could, but like for sprints, I just estimated 5 total working sets or 5 reps of sprints. I estimated that I did 5 max jumps per jump session. It's like when I go down in reps, I'm going to go up in weight. So it's hard to guess the amount or calculate the amount of volume when instead of doing 4 sets of 20, you do 4 sets of 10, but you increase the weight. So increasing weight adds volume, but decreasing reps takes away volume. Like, it's very hard to get this 100% correct, but I did as best as I could. Anyways, if you're still watching, wow, I commend you. We'll clap it up for you. If this made absolutely 0 sense, then it's not you. It's me. I probably didn't explain this as well as I could. Just understand that in a volume phase, you want to stress your body, your central nervous system, your tendons, your muscles, not so much your tendons. You want to stress your muscles and your central nervous system as much as possible to force adaptation. And then during the taper, you want to take some of that stress away so that you can recover. You can see that those adaptations come through. You can see that super compensation occur, and you can feel more fresh, and you can jump really high from all the work that you just did. Anyways, that's it for this video. Like this video if you like it. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your question down below if you want me to answer your question in a video just like this. And there's a link down below in the pinned comment and the description of this video with access to my advanced training programs. If you want to take all of the guesswork out of your training and you don't want to write your own taper, you want me to do all the math for you, I will do that, right? I will write out your sets, your reps, your exercises, your regressions and progressions, your phases, your periodization, your taper, your back off, your deloads. I will do it all for you. Just click that link and check out my advanced vertical jump training programs or my customized vertical jump coaching. But without further ado, I will see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.